Hello, I'm Tricia Murray and welcome to the Birth and Baby Academy. So today we're talking about some of the most common fears around childbirth, and it's really important that we address these fears because these can be the fears that can quite often come up during our birth, meaning a longer and more difficult and painful labour and birth experience. At the end of this, I invite you to go to birthandbabyacademy.com and download my fear release visualisation, which is an exercise that many people have found useful to help them to process and reduce the fears that they have around birth. So let's get into the topic in a bit more detail. So let's look at the first fear, and without a doubt, the first fear that the biggest fear that many women have around birth is pain and how painful birth is going to be. And it's not really a surprise when we think about all the different stories that we've heard around birth and about how painful birth has been for many women and how birth is portrayed in the media. However, we really need to understand why we have that pain. And one of the reasons that we have that pain is that it's our body's way of alerting us that something is happening and we need to go off and get ready to give birth to this baby. And the second reason we have that pain is because our body is doing so much stretching and manoeuvring to help that baby come out of our bodies. Now, once we understand that and we understand why we have those things, with that knowledge, we can then access lots of different tools and resources to help us to manage that pain, to have a much more positive experience. And I know that it can be like that because I've witnessed it many times. Fear number 2 is that childbirth is dangerous. And this is one of the biggest myths that we have, that childbirth is dangerous and something terrible is going to happen. However, childbirth has never been so safe, even for women who are described as being high risk. Childbirth has never ever been safer. In fact, there's lots of things in the world that are much more dangerous than birth. Driving, cycling, and even climbing stairs. Fear number 3, your vagina. Many women are really anxious about what's going to happen to their vagina during birth. And this is something that many women don't talk about in their pregnancy or don't really think about. And I think almost it's too scary for them to acknowledge this fear. But yet we know that through education, many women can reduce the chance of this happening to them. And we know that if women don't lie on their back, that if they aren't induced, and a whole host of other things that could happen to them, they're much less likely to be affected through birth. Fear number 4. This is a really big one, that my baby is too big for my vagina. I hear this all the time. Oh my goodness, I'm having a baby who's on the 95th percentile. So that is when you get a scan, you get told where your baby is in terms of the general population. And we hear this so often. But what do we know about that? Well, firstly, scanning information is not always accurate, so we can't be totally reliant on that information. And secondly, here's a story for you. There was a woman in the news just last week who gave birth to a 14-pound baby on gas and air alone. And what did she have that other women don't have? How did she manage to do that? And here's what I think. I think she had no idea how big her baby was, and therefore she didn't have that fear. And it's that fear about having a big baby that's the thing that stalls labour and birth. Fear number 5, will I poo in labour? Well, many women do poo around labour and birth. But let me tell you something, most women poo just before they go into labour. Their body expulses everything to help them to prepare. And sometimes if women do poo during labour, we're actually really excited, because what does that mean? It means that the baby is just about to come. So it's not something to be worried about, it's actually a really great sign to have during labour. Fear number 6, hospitals. This is a really common fear, and it's not a surprise because when we think about hospitals, we normally associate it with sickness and death. And therefore, we need to start thinking how we can reframe that, or maybe looking at different options around your birth. So for example, considering a home birth. There are, of course, many other fears that many women have, and this list isn't exhaustive. So it's time now for you to think about how you're going to work through these fears. What are you going to do today? I'd like you now to go to the birthandbabyacademy.com and go to my fear release visualization, which is an exercise that you can do around all the various fears that you have. This is a tool that many people have found helpful to help them to reduce and process their fears around birth. It is vital that you do this with your partner so that they can work on any fears that they have and they're not brought into the birth room. So what are you going to commit to today? Having a positive birth doesn't come through inaction. It comes from preparation and a commitment every day to have a much better birth. So it's time now for you to relax deeply, learn wisely, and experience a much better birth.